For those of you who don't know, the next step is an OAE program highlighting the journeys of recent alumni. Our guests will reflect on their time at UM, how they've navigated life after graduation, and what their current path looks like. The next step is part one-on-one interview and part Q&A with attendees. So next up on the next step is Garrett Roberts, a Hammond Scholar that graduated with his Bachelor of Business Administration in 2018, followed by his MBA from the Miami Herbert Business School. He started businesses in the music industry, e-commerce space, and most recently in the blockchain development. Garrett also serves as product manager of business applications for the Miami Heat in the strategy division, which builds external and internal facing tech products that work cross-departmentally with ticket sales, basketball operations, premium and corporate clients, and season ticket memberships. So Garrett is a busy guy, as always. Garrett, welcome back.
What's going on, everybody? Nice to be here, Chris. Thank you for the invite. Jordan, thanks for setting this up for us. Really excited to be here and share some of my experiences with you all.
Of course, it's our pleasure. And I do have to start this conversation with a little bit of a story, because Garrett, you factor into my experience in the OAE in a really pretty pronounced way. In 2014, when I took this job, I left athletics and came over to the Office of Academic Enhancement. And I had always heard great things about Hammond Scholars. I knew a few that had played football or other sports over the years. And my impression was always, kind of second to none, really a great group of students, which was in large part why I was attracted to the position, was to work with that group of students. But I wasn't ready for what I really encountered. And that was orientation for the new Hammond Scholars in fall of 2014. So it was August. And we were hosting a dinner in one of the faculty apartments. And Garrett, I think you were the second or third student to show up, but you come walking in, jacket, shirt, really, this is more of an in-person story. It works better in person, but you come walking right up to me, lean in, you give me a handshake, a nice firm handshake. You're like, hey, I'm Garrett Roberts and you go into this whole thing. And it wasn't at all contrived. It wasn't at all inauthentic or forced. It was just you being you, but it was clear to me that you were somebody who was sort of built different and kind of ready to go. And sure enough, your experience at UM, you really carved your own path. You did your own thing. You got involved on campus and off. And that's some of what I hope we'll cover in this conversation. But anyway, it's good to have you back, Garrett. I don't know if you remember that night at all, but it made an impact on me.
Absolutely, man. No, I'm glad you could. I'm glad it did. I still remember it, and you've been an instrumental role in my time at UM and honestly my time away from UM. So, got some background, and I've got a story to share there. I'm sure we'll get into it about how cool it's been to work with you as well.
Cool, thanks, Garrett. So let's talk about you, and let's kind of go back to the beginning. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up, and maybe what your college decision process was like and how you ended up at the U.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Garrett, go by G. It's easier for us all, but I kind of grew up all over the place. So my family, my father came out of school as an engineer, and he got hired by this company called Prince Corporation, which was like a leadership program for engineers, building planes for the Army, if you will. So we were flown out I was born in Michigan, but literally within the year I was born, we were flown to Dusseldorf, Germany, and we stayed right outside an Army base for 4.5 to 5 years. So I really honestly started my life in an international aspect. I went to an international school, was in class with folks from the Middle East, Australia, Asia, some North Americans, such as my family, myself, and of course, a ton of folks from the European countries. So after that, I then flew back to the States. We moved back. My dad switched from engineering to business, and we grew up on the West Coast. We went to California for a little bit, then went up to Oregon, moved to the Midwest, stayed in St. Louis and in Colorado, Family now lives in Houston, and here I am in Miami, Florida. So honestly, I don't have a city that I can honestly say like I grew up, born and raised, all my friends from here. So I kind of claim like the entire lay of the land. This whole earth is my turf. So I I try and say that I was born in a place but grew up all over the place. But I'm now happy to say that I'm here in Miami and been here for the last few years after school, and it's been really nice. And in terms of my college decision and experience, because of the background of living all over the world, I certainly wanted to go to a school that reflected that for me. At the time of making my college decision, I was in the Midwest. If you haven't been to the Midwest, it's almost like the South. It's very black and white. So I told myself coming out of school that this environment isn't for me. I want to go somewhere that's actually fresh, fun, and I see a lot more diversity. So I applied to places in Florida, applied to places in Chicago, the West Coast, Northeast, and honest to God, true story, I didn't apply to until the last 2 weeks of the deadline. And the reason being, um, crazy expensive, obviously, and didn't know if I would get in. But I got an email from a lady who was working in the Hammond program maybe a week before the deadline. So I looked at my mom. I was like, hey, maybe I write an article, an essay, and we'll just take it from there. Wrote the essay and got accepted to the interview round. So I figured, we might have something here. Flew down in April before school started, gave my interview. Again, that's where I got to meet Chris and a few others. And from there, honestly, I knew like this is the place I want to be. From the moment we touched down in Miami to the moment we got to campus, obviously the campus is beautiful, probably top 5 in the country. And the people that I met, honestly, is what really sealed the deal. So my college decision and process was scattered. But honestly, I kept my options open, and that kind of led me to So really happy about that.
Okay, so you were a business student. Were you always business, or did you ever have any other interests that you thought you might pursue in college, or were you always pretty set on that?
I was always set on business, but it's not like I went into business knowing that I would be finance or marketing or accounting or anything like that. I just knew, especially being at which I'm sure a lot of students on this call understand, is there are a lot of people on this planet, and there are a lot of different cultures and a lot of different cities, countries, etc. I felt like what are the ways that I can use a degree from that will allow me to mold myself into those environments? And business to me was one of them. Whether you are an engineer or you are studying medicine or you're working at a hospital, the underlying common theme is how are you able to engage in some sort of commerce or business with each other. So I always knew business was for me, but when I first got to I didn't know it was going to be management or marketing.
All right. And let's talk about, before we get to your off-campus involvements and engagements, you did a lot while you were here. Let's talk a little bit about on-campus things. Where did you find your home on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. Not obligated to say it, but definitely found my home through Hammond's. There were plenty of great activities and events that we got incorporated through the Hammond's program, which then led me to meet more people. But I really found my time in 2 places. Intramural basketball was great. Played actually on the practice team, which, if it's worth anything, freshman year, Coach Caputo, shout out to him, and Kunkel as well. They accepted me, and it was cool. But I really found, like my space through a student-based and led startup, which was called Tamid Group, TAMID. And it's pretty much a pro bono consulting organization ran by students all over the country that brings businesses, startups from Israel to the States. And they use students, of course, free of charge, pro bono, to develop marketing plans, management plans, market penetration, financial plans, and stuff like that. So as soon as I found this group and organization and was thrown into some projects where I got to make some very high level decisions on behalf of companies that are spending hard-earned money, I knew like this is it. This is where I want to be. So out of all the things I did, to me, group was definitely by far where I spent most of my time and had the most involvement in. So if anybody, after this call is interested to learn more about that or would like for me to connect you with some of those folks that are there, would definitely be happy to.
Awesome. I know we do have a number of students who are active in Mead. I didn't hear as much about that organization in the time you were at but in the last couple of years especially, I feel like our students have really engaged with that group. So I know you'll find that in common with some of those in attendance today. Let's talk a little bit about off campus. I remember, for those listening, I didn't advise Garrett directly. So I heard through students like Asante that Garrett was a basketball player and he could really hoop. But I also, I heard through the grapevine too that Garrett was involved in putting on concerts and kind of starting up some different things. So talk about some of the ventures that you had while you were in undergrad, and maybe we can kind of segue that into other sort of side, things that you've kind of pursued and played with.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure most of us on this call share the interest and enjoyment in music. I kind of find it hard if you don't enjoy music. It's almost a staple like food, right? But with music, I, of course, grew up listening to it, all kind of genres, and had the idea with a couple of friends. We moved off campus, and before we moved off campus, if you allow me to kind of like take it all the way back, had the almost random idea at like 4 a.m, sitting in the dorm rooms, which by the way, stayed in Stanford, I think on the 2nd floor. So shout out to anybody that's staying in that building. Although I have love for Hecht. But we had an idea like 4 a.m, and we're like, why are we not throwing shows? Like, how can we bring the people we enjoy listening to the city of Miami, let alone to our campus? So organized with some friends. And of course, it helps to go to a school like because you never know who you're going to rub shoulders with or who you're in class with. It just so happened to turn out that one of my friends that I met through basketball and, through the grapevine at his name is Jeremy Muhammad. And for those of you who aren't super entwined into the hip hop community, he was related to, or is related to, Louis Farrakhan and a few others, which play a very big role in the hip hop community. And because of that, he was able to connect us with people in the industry, such as John Monopoly, who is at the time was Kanye West's manager for his first few albums, and now most recently he's his manager as well. So we started developing a relationship with this guy named John Monopoly, and I hope you guys after this, take the time to look these names up on Google to kind of confirm what I'm speaking on. And he was so okay and willing and open to allowing us to just pick his brain and learn that he slipped up and he offered, is that if you guys can, ground up some money, I'd be more than happy to organize your first ever show. You don't just tell that to a whole bunch of 18, 19-year-olds in college hungry, to get to the next level. So we all, geeked out after that, went out and celebrated, and we got to work. So weeks go by, and here we are knocking on dorm rooms, just asking anybody, hey, do you know anybody that's got some money? Do you know anybody that knows somebody that can help us out with some money? The craziest thing, but true hustling. We were literally at this time hustling. And we met some folks. And one of the guys we met, who turns out I'm still really good friends with, his name was Craig Henning. And at the time, his dad was working in intellectual property. And he was very open and he wanted to see his son, start his own thing. So we connected dots, which is a big point. I know we've got some time on here later, probably with some advice, but my biggest thing for you guys is to learn your environment and connect some dots. And what we did is we took the relationship with John Monopoly and connected him with people that had at the time financial sources. From there, we get everybody on a call together and, we make enough money to throw some shows. So long story short and fast forward, we were able to start a business, threw some shows for like 2 Chainz, Playboy Cardi, Metro Boomin, Fetty Wap, Young Thug, Rick Ross, the list goes on. And that's kind of honestly how we got started. Then from there, more recently, to segue into kind of what I'm doing now, because obviously COVID happened and show stopped. So had to figure out some other ways to, keep myself busy besides working for the Heat. Crypto just kind of hit a huge explosion, like right before, the pandemic, because of the successes we found in the concert industry and just saving up some money of my own. Got involved in the crypto industry in 2016, 2017. And at the time, if you guys remember, before all this craze, there really weren't outlets to go learn and outlets to really understand this space. So it was like, go to the black web or find, group chats of kids that are just wizards in this space. And we did that. We found a whole bunch of folks that were in this space that were currently developing. And we spent a lot of time with them through COVID. So now I work with, Eternity Chain and others to help people get their NFT projects off the ground, to develop blockchain-based smart contracts and decentralized applications and things like that, which we're now trying to plug into the Miami Heat. So appreciate you letting me take it all the way back to then bring it back to where we are now. That's kind of how I got started on some off-campus stuff.
So let's talk. You had these experiences. I'm sure there's like a dream attached to that, and then there's also this sort of like, okay, if the dream doesn't work, I've got to know how I'll pivot and what I'll do. So how did you balance that? How did you balance this idea of, I want to chase my dream, see where this takes me, see if we hit it big, see how successful we can be, with also like just being practical and trying to gain experience that'll help you get a job and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. And I know a lot of students are probably thinking to themselves now as they get ready for the next level when they graduate. In the most simplest terms, you have to take chances. Like, let's just set the table right now with where you all are in your lives. You are the most educated you'll be as of today, but you are also the youngest you will ever be today. Tomorrow, you're one day older, right? You guys are in a very good position now to take chances. And if you guys know about statistics, for anybody that's a math major on here or finance or accounting, life is about numbers. The more opportunities you align yourself with and you give yourself, the more opportunities you will have to succeed. I didn't make the game up, but that's literally how the game works. So I thought, if I can take as many chances as I can in college, because honestly, this is the time to take chances. You don't have too many risks involved. You don't have other, pending things on your shoulders, such as a family or financial situations or anything like that. Take the chance, right? If you don't take the chance now, you may be left with 5-10 years in the future thinking, damn, what it could have been like if I had taken a chance. So for me, the way I balanced it is, I'm in school. I don't have too many risks associated with doing a lot of things. Heck, I don't even know what I like because there are so many things that you can do. You guys are young. So I balanced it by having the mindset of take the chance first. And if it doesn't work out, pivot. And that's kind of what led me to, falling back on the Heat organization to segue into that as well. I laid the foundation for taking the risks, taking the chances. And if it doesn't work out, so what? Like, you're in college or you're about to graduate. So what? You have the rest of your life to figure out what else you want to do. And I was okay with, again, that opportunity cost of taking the risk, putting a lot of time in and it doesn't working out, to gaining the experience and pivoting and moving on to something else. And because of those risks and those chances I took by just starting businesses with a bunch of friends, I then learned valuable, life lessons and experiences and skills that were needed to, find a job with the real employer. So I used that and took that to the Miami Heat. And that's how I was able to get started there. That's kind of how I started my role as a product support specialist and have been since promoted into product management. So I know, again, another long-winded answer, but I say, Chris, the main thing is take a chance now, take the risks, because what you may think you like now will change a year from now. You'll be an entirely new human being 3 years from now. So do everything you can now to experience, learn as much as possible. And if you don't like it 2 years from now, then, oh well, at least you tried.
Garrett, talk a little more about your role with the Heat. What exactly do you do? I mean, I know I read the title and you've mentioned it, but what does that look like for you on like a not a daily basis necessarily, like not what your schedule is, but what's your goal? What are you working towards? How are you helping the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you there. And before I take you there, for those that are actually interested in just kind of like what is product management and all of that. So the role that I have, which is very specific, and or I shouldn't say it that way, is very common within the tech industry and the tech world. Think about the largest tech businesses that you work with every day: the Apples, the Microsofts, the Netflix, the Spotify. Those types of companies. What you need is someone who can interface between the developers, the people that are literally coding the programs that we use every day, and the clients or the customers, which is us. So let's just use the example with Spotify, right? Because we're on the topic of music. In order for you to use the Spotify app and get all those super cool features like recently played or the roundup of the year, which by the way, I think is coming out real soon for 2021, you need to be able to develop those types of features within that tool or that product, which is Spotify, and develop it in a way that makes sense for the customer. Developers, they speak one language very well, and that's code. Clients, they speak one language, and that's or customers, they speak one language very well, and that's here is what we like about what you're currently putting out, and here's what could be better. But in tech, it's a really hard spectrum to find people in the middle that can work on both sides of those fronts. So in product management and not project management, I'm someone who sits in between the customers and the clients and our developers. So I work with the developers through, it's called DevOps or Dev Operations, and we put together weekly or bi-weekly and monthly sprints where we're figuring out and we're looking at the tools and the product that we're putting out, or the features. What could be better? Are there bugs? What new things do we want to introduce? Grabbing those things together, shipping it out, producing it, adding it to the product of the app, and then following up with our customers or our clients and asking them for feedback. Do you like this? Has it helped you with your job? Are you satisfied with this? What could be better? Are there bugs? Taking that feedback and then of course communicating that back to the developers. So in a nutshell, product management is a loop. It's an infinite loop of back and forth between your developers and your clients and your customers. Now, that sounds very nice and all, but we often get thrown into just multiple projects if I'm just speaking about my role with the Heat. When it comes to the Heat, because we're not a tech-first business, and obviously we're a basketball team, but we still have to figure out ways to get fans in the building. And ultimately, our biggest job is to make the organization money from a business standpoint outside of the court. Since I'm in the strategy department, there are a multitude of projects and things that I get thrown into to either lead or to help develop on. And one of those cool things, besides the mobile Heat app that I get to work with, is CRM. And CRM stands for Customer or Client Relationship Management. For anybody that doesn't know, it's definitely very specific to marketing and data analytics. Think about a hub, like a digital brain, where you have communications and marketing, you have sales, and you have management. In this software, this brain has all three of these big buckets all encapsulated into one thing that then allows your business to drive off of. So for CRM and the way we use it, we store all of our client information there. We store our ticketing information. We store all of our deals information there. We store financial stuff and a whole bunch of other things. And this is how we drive the business for selling tickets, for selling to prospects, working with potential sponsorships and partnership opportunities. So outside of being a product manager, I also oversee CRM and some other stuff. So the role, if you guys ever want to get interested into working with the Miami Heat, there's never a dull moment. Every day I wake up and there's something new, fresh, fun to work on. And I'm sure Chris is the same with OAE. He may have what he wants to work on for the week, but he may get a call from somebody and, something changes. If you all are interested in a fast-paced environment, where the organization truly values your perspective and your voice, definitely would be happy to connect you guys with some representatives from the Heat to see how we may help you.
Love it. Thanks for that. I'm sure there's hopefully some students who are itching to get in here and chat with you about those types of opportunities. To that point, let me mention to our audience, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions. I do have a couple more questions for Garrett, but we would love for you all to come in and interact with him directly. Garrett, there's one thing we didn't talk about in your journey so far, and that is your decision to go to grad school. So talk about that. How did you decide to go get an MBA? I think immediately after undergrad, and I think while you were still working for the Heat. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. My decision at the time was greatly influenced by one, OA, Chris, and my other mentor that I had at the time, an advisor, but also the people that were working within the business department. The names I'm blanking on now, but they really pushed me to pursue this. I would have meetings. If you're in the business school, and I'm sure it's similar, but maybe different, every so often you have to meet with your academic advisors. And when I would have these meetings, they were the ones that truly influenced me to go and seek an MBA. And what I ended up doing was, again, writing a couple papers. I didn't have to take the GMAT because it was the same school, and I was able to get a little bit of money for the time being. So the decision I made was, do I stay the extra year and find more opportunities to figure out what I like and what I truly want to do? Or do I just jump straight into the workforce and make it happen? And I'm not saying this is the right decision for everyone, but for me at the time being, with the things lined up and opportunities lined up in front of me, I thought it would be nice to take an additional 9 to 10 months to do the 1-year MBA program, get that extra experience, while also taking the 9 to 10 months to truly figure out what I like and what I don't like. So that's kind of what led me to that program. Again, I think everybody's, roadmap and everybody's future is unique. There is no real blueprint to like doing this. There isn't a decision where you have to get the master's in order to be successful in life or to get that dream job you want. But for me at the time, it made the most sense.
What was the biggest difference for you between undergrad and grad school, since you did business for both?
Advisors, Chris and Jordan, you may want to cover your ears, but the real candid, transparent answer is undergrad, they teach you how to memorize and regurgitate, which I know probably not the nicest thing you would want to hear. But the truth and the fact of the undergrad is in 4 years, your teachers, whether you're in, again, the medicine school, the communication school, the business school, engineering, whatever it may be, they're really good at teaching you how to memorize a ton of data and information and then applying that to a test. But then as soon as that's over, on to the next. That compared to grad school, where they're taking real life problems and conceptualizing them into critical thinking, was the main difference. Taking the example of like a crisis that may happen. So for example, Facebook and their PR crisis when they had the privacy data issues, taking those types of examples and putting you as the grad student in a position to, how would you handle this? And then give me the reasons why you would choose the way you would handle this in those types of ways. So it forces you to critically think. There is no, let me go to the textbook and remember chapters 4 through 8. And then, if I see that answer on the test, put it out there. There are no real answers and there are no right answers. You have to conceptualize everything yourself and critically think through those moments. So that was the main difference and the biggest challenge from undergrad to grad school. Undergrad is very calculated. And I'm sure you all know the system by now at and how to succeed in that system. But with grad school, it's just about life. It's just about what are the real world applications in this ambiguous market and environment, and figuring out the best way to proceed. And I think those are the biggest differences. And another reason why I would push for going to grad school to get that experience, but again, not necessarily mandatory or relevant if you know what you want to do.
Thanks for that, Garrett. These are all really good insights. It's fun to hear your story and your perspective on some of these things. I'm sure you had plenty of classes where you didn't have to just memorize stuff. You don't have to rehash all that. Let's ask a few questions just to get to know you a little bit better. To the students in attendance, if you do have questions for Garrett, please use the Q&A feature. Otherwise, we'll kind of wrap things up after we hear hear some personal stuff from Garrett. Garrett, what is your favorite movie?
All right. All of the Star Wars movies plus James Bond, Casino Royale. Those are my top. Like, I don't have a movie, but those are my top movies for sure.
Okay. And how about your favorite cuisine?
Being here in Miami for the time being, I definitely would have to say tacos for sure.
And what's your favorite trip that you've ever taken?
Going to Paris was a blast. Seeing the Eiffel Tower in person, the food was absolutely amazing. And honestly, the vibes, the environment, and the views were beautiful.
When did you do that? When was Paris?
Did that during or right before college. So back in high school, we took a trip for a couple weeks, and that was super fun.
Cool. You mentioned music a lot. What is the best decade for music?
I gotta say, for me, because I really enjoy hip hop, which doesn't mean I don't listen to other genres, but I think the 90s, man, like, we got some of the best music in the 90s. I think the greatest hip hop album of all time came from the Notorious Big, and the second greatest, I think, came from Nas. And I think during the 90s was just like a phenomenal era.
Okay, I think you got a little mixed up there. I think I'm pretty sure Illmatic is the best hip hop album of all time, but to each their own. What are you most proud of?
The person I'm becoming before my parents' eyes. Family is a big thing in my corner. I do think it takes a tribe and an entire community to raise the young, the youth. And I've always looked up to being the best person in my parents' eyes. So I'm most proud of being able to go home for Thanksgiving or holiday breaks and enjoy, laughter and happiness with my family, because they're truly proud of the person I'm becoming. So I think that's what I'm most proud of.
That's great. And kind of on the, not necessarily on the flip, but is there anything that you would do differently if you could?
Yeah, actually, I would make 5,000 more mistakes in college while I still had the opportunity. Again, you guys are in an incredible time of your lives right now. Take chances. Like, if there's nothing you remember about this conversation we're having now, the only thing I do want you to remember is that you have to give yourself opportunities to succeed. And if I could go back and do it all over again with my time at I thought I took a lot of chances, but I didn't. I would take way more, and I would give myself more room for growth, more room to make mistakes and learn from those things.
That's spoken like a real entrepreneur. Last question for you is, what did it mean for you to be a Hammond Scholar?
Being a Hammond Scholar meant more than just one thing. I think it was just the embodiment of being the best you, and being an example for those around you. In other words, leading by example. But overall, for me, Hammond Scholars, with the foundation of giving minorities an opportunity at such a prestigious school like it put into perspective for me that, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people in my family lineage that, had to go through really tough times for me to be here. Not to get super dark on the call, and I don't want to end that way, but, slavery is a real thing. and things that came before that are very real as well. And I know for my great grandparents that took those risks and unfortunately had to go through what they went through in order for their family, future generations from now, to have a better chance at life. I looked at the Hammond Scholarship as that chance for me to give back to everyone that came before me, to work as hard as I can and to make something of my life, because I owe it to my great grandparents that made the decisions before me. So being a Hammond Scholar was a time of reflection, again, a time to lead by example. It was the true embodiment of being a minority at a school like that.
Thanks for that, Garrett. We actually, we do have a couple questions. So at this time, we're gonna bring CJ in. CJ, come on in, and when you get in, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and introduce yourself to Garrett, name, where you're from, what you're studying, and go ahead with your question.
I actually just got notice from CJ that he is on mobile, so he can't really do that. But I can ask the two questions that he sent in. First was, what was the biggest gamble you took that paid off, Garrett?
That's a good question. The biggest gamble I took was the concerts, actually. Not to like throw some numbers out there, but I was 18 at the time, pitching a $500,000 show to investors, and I had no idea how to pitch. I had no idea how to talk to angel investors, VCs. I had no idea how to sell. So again, just being a hustler, the gamble was, as an entrepreneur, you do things although you don't know what you're doing because you just figure it out on the way. So I remember being in one of these, I look at my window, one of these high rises here downtown, and the gamble was pitching a $500,000 show to a man that I had never met before, but just got in contact with, and explaining to him why a show in South Florida with the artists that we wanted was so important to the space and how much money we would make. Did I know we would make the money? Absolutely not. Did I know exactly everything I was speaking about when I talked to him? Of course not. I didn't even know how to accept the money if he wanted to give it to us. So the biggest gamble was exactly that, because I walked away from those types of meetings, specifically that meeting, and drove home like, what am I doing? I just asked this random man for $500,000 to throw a 2 Chainz show in South Florida. What the heck am I even doing? But that gamble and going to bed that night, waking up the next morning, like, life is truly what you make it. And again, taking those risks and chances, that was the biggest gamble, because it was a fruitful gamble for us. If I had gotten the money through the show and completely bombed, that would have been a huge mistake, which by the way, there were opportunities. And I mean, there were times when I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on behalf of my investors because of me not knowing what to do. And that's the risk you have to take. So that by far was the biggest gamble, because that was at an early age some of the most lifelong lessons I've earned from that. And then I think, Jordan, the second question, do you see graduate school as a necessary precursor to success, right?
Yep, that's the second one there in the chat.
Absolutely not. Again, just because it worked for me, I don't think that blueprint is designed to work for everyone. If you have a great opportunity to start a business or work with an employer of your dreams or get some sort of experience, go to grad school. Chris will be the first to tell you, we fought on this, not in a harsh way, but I was considering getting a double master's in music business because the school had given me a lot of money. I really enjoyed the space. I kept telling Chris in all of our meetings, like, dude, I love it. Dude, I need it. Like, and Chris challenged me. He really challenged me. He put me in a perspective of, I mean, do you really need this? Do you need this opportunity to really do what you want? And, if it wasn't for him, I might not be here at the Miami Heat as soon as I am now, because I would still be in school for the extra year and I would have gone a different route because I would have met new people. So no, I do not think grad school is necessary at all to be successful. I think success you're not born into it, but I think it's just the drive to you becoming a better business person or a better whoever you are in your position that really drives success.
Garrett, I'm sure you would be just fine if you went and got that second master's degree. But I'm glad things have worked out the way they have. And your journey's been a fun one to sort of be along for the ride. And it will be fun to see where it takes you. It's been good to stay in touch with you. Hang on, do we have anything else?
No, it was just CJ.
Gotcha. CJ, thanks for that question. To those in attendance, hope you got a little bit out of this. Garrett, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Next time you're near campus, make sure to get in touch. And otherwise, we'll be in touch anyway. How about for old time's sake, we go ahead and throw up to you.
Let's do it, man. But before we do that, I do have one last thing. Just for any of the students listening, I'm not sure how many there are, but no matter what grade you're in right now, what age you're at, you're gonna go through some tough times. There's definitely gonna be a lot of moments in your life that you don't think you're gonna be able to get past it, whether it's that test that you think is impossible in front of you, or that job interview at your dream business. The best advice, besides taking chances, that I think you all should be left with as well, is to develop some sort of resilience and drive yourself on that. Chris will tell you, Jordan will tell you, anyone else will tell you that life, there will be adversity. And those that are successful don't have grad school degrees by their name. Those that are successful are folks that can pick themselves back up after adversity and have resilience. So again, whatever age you're at, whatever grade you're in now, develop that sense of resilience and be okay and accept and challenge adversity. I think you'll be very successful, and that's how you guys will then drive this next generation. Had to say that point, Chris, but now I'm ready and happy to throw up to you.
Good, man. Well, thanks for all that, Garrett. It's always a pleasure. Let's do it.